Peter, thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview. It is a pleasure to be with you today. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Paula Urze. I'm sociologist and professor at Nova FCT. I'm the co-PI on the ProWork project, and this interview is taking place within the scope of the project. I would like now to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background and research, briefly.
Okay. Thank you, Paula. My name is Peter Oeij. I work for TNO, which is the Netherlands Organization of Applied Scientific Research. It's a research and technology organization in the Netherlands. I'm working at the department Health and Work. And in our department, I am working on topics like work, organization and management, new technology, future of work, workplace innovation, social innovation. In simple words, my role and my interest is to look at new changes like new technology and then study what they mean for the work and for the organization. The purpose is to look at both how do these changes improve the business performance of an organization, one, and second, how does it affect the quality of work of the employees? So these are two focus points of interest in my work.
Okay, thank you very much. So, taking the topic of the project, the ProWork project that is dedicated to the study of projectification, as you already know, I would like to ask you, please, to define a project. It means, what does it represent for you as a researcher? The word or the concept of project.
Yes, well, first of all, a project is a kind of work organization. At the same time, a project implies a task and a goal. Something needs to be achieved by this project. And often a project is a temporary organization of a certain number of people working on this project for a limited time. When the project is finished, the project team will be disconnected and people might join other projects or other project teams. So it's a temporary kind of organization with a specific purpose, I would say.
Thank you. So, following this idea, I would like to ask you as well, how do you think work organized around projects has changed over the years?
I think, first of all, that you see a growth of projects. So more work is organized in a temporary way, a bit inside or sometimes apart from more traditional organizations. For example, in more bureaucratic and traditional organizations, when some new task had to be done, for example, the implementation of a new technology, then this was simply done by a group of people in that organization, and they introduced a new technology, and then they worked with the new technology. Today, or step by step, you see that this kind of work is more surrounded by borders, with a set of key performance indicators to deal with, like money, time, budget, goals, and with planning to achieve results within those limits, within those budgets, goals, and resources being used. It's also one way of mitigating risks to organize change within the project, because you can separate a project from the main process of an organization and see it as a separate entity and evaluate and judge if this project is going well, in a way to better control the expenses and the purpose of a project. Apart from that, apart from this growth of projects, you see that the work is changing in the latest decades as a consequence of new technology like digitalization, artificial intelligence, in which you see more flexible kind of organizations, more temporary organizations, and also more flexible and temporary jobs. You see, for example, platform organizations that organize gig work, and you could see every gig work or every gig assignment as a little project. For example, if you are an Uber taxi driver, maybe you're not employed as an employer of the Uber organization, but maybe you are a self-employed person and you're doing assignments for Uber to have taxi rides on command. Now, is that a job or is that a project? Since you could say, well, each of those taxi drives is a similar kind of assignment, and to call it a project or not raises the question if a project should always be something new and innovative and never something that is similar to the former project. Perhaps these are two types of projects that can be innovative and projects that are a bunch of tasks and work combined in one project, but it's every time it's a similar kind of project. For example, if you are a caterer and you prepare lunches and dinners for external customers, you can see every time this is a similar project for a similar customer, a similar clients. So the question then is, should a project be new or can it be the same? At the same time, I just wanted to say that the number of work organized in those kind of projects is probably been augmenting in the last 20, 30 years compared to what we had in traditional organizations in the past.
And what does it mean, innovative project, as you mentioned?
Well, you can imagine projects that you do for the first time. For example, if you talk about building projects and you as an organization have the assignment to build a new football stadium, for example, and you have never built a certain football stadium before, then it's a project with many new things. So it could be a project with an innovative task. On the other hand, you also have organizations that have research and development departments. And in those research and development departments, you have groups of people who together are assigned to develop new things, maybe new technologies, new services, new products. And each of those groups could be a project that is in fact an innovation project. So a project that is meant to develop a new innovation like a new project. So that's another type of innovation projects.
Okay, so thank you. Now going precisely to our case studies and taking as reference the different areas of research, I would like to raise some questions dedicated to these specific areas. First of all, we have verified in our investigation that consultancy companies are related to projectification in three ways, we can say. The service they provide are themselves organized as projects. Sometimes they provide service around organizational restructuring so that another company can better accommodate projects. And sometimes they help companies building applications to fund projects. The question is, what role do you think consultancy companies play in the projectification of work?
Yes, question. I think that consultancy firms who work in assignments for other companies, that most of their work is organized as a project. For example, as a consultancy company, you can help a company with changes that they want to implement and how to do it. That's one. But also you have the possibility that certain tasks, perhaps interim tasks, could be performed for a client company. For example, a company buys software of a firm, and then the software firm places a worker from the ICT worker in the client company to help the client company implement the technology, train people, and perhaps executing a lot of tasks in the beginning until the company is fully trained and fully familiar with the new IT technology. And then this consultancy person goes back to the consultancy firm. So it can also be in the form of delivering manpower for a client. Both these examples, executing a project in a firm or placing a worker in the firm by the consultancy company, can be seen as a project. So I think that for consultancy companies, developing different kind of projects is probably part of their business model, to temporarily help other companies with the kind of project that fits best to their needs.
Okay, but relating to your words, I would say that consultancy companies are in some way a mean of shaping work in projectification. It means that, do you think that consultancy companies could be some structures that improve, increase and shape the organization of work as projectification?
And I think when you hire a company, it will affect your own organization of work. But if it will stimulate projectification, by which I assume you mean that the mother company will then start organizing work more in terms of projects, that doesn't have to be the case. I think that partly depends on the rate or level of dependency of this consultancy firm. For example, in our country, we see that certain ministries in the past, there was a lot of expertise inside those ministries. At one moment in time, they wanted to cut costs and they decided to fire the experts workers within the ministry and hire consultants on a temporary basis with that expertise to carry out the work in a temporary way that they needed. In that way, you could say the ministries stimulated projectification, if that is what you mean. And yes, it also had an effect on the organization of work because these ministries made themselves very dependent on the external expertise of those consultants. Is that an example that you mean?
Yes, yes. It is an example among others. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Now,
but I'm not familiar with the fact that is this a growing phenomenon with all business sectors? I think it is, but I don't have any figures about that.
Okay. Now about the social economy. In the social economy case studies, we have found some interesting results. I'm going to say 2 or 3. Projects are fictionally temporary since they respond to permanent needs. For social organizations, they imply precarity and a high staff turnover with implications on workers' health and well-being and on activities that depends on consistency and bounds of trust. Last, while quantitative indicators are very important to manage projects, many activities in this area are qualitative and in average not measurable. So in the art sectors, projects imply as well precarity. When artists have found projects, they work. When they don't work. It means that they depend on the project in general. The question is, it is possible to adapt projects to all contexts, or rather, should projects be used only in certain contexts? Of course, it's not a question of yes or no. It means that it is a question to elaborate on the topic in the sense that we have here 2 different areas, social economy and art sector. There are some similarities, for instance, taking into account the projects and the precarity related to the projects and people that are integrated in those projects. So the main thought it is possible to adapt the organization of working projects to specific contexts, or we have to think, in something in a general way.
Yes, well, if you look at social issues, and if you compare that with the art sector, then the question could be first, what is the function of applying projects? For example, in the social sector, one could imagine you want to solve certain social needs of precarious people. For mobility, housing, education, or whatever topic. And then these projects, they are intended to support the relief of social issues for these persons that participate in those projects for the precarious people. If you look at the art sector and you look at projects, you could consider, well, for people in art professions, it's difficult to get paid work. So do projects help them to have work and have an income? In that case, it would partly be a sort of social security project to support the subsistence of people working in the arts sector. The question is this what you want? Is this a reason why you want to use projects in the arts sector to avoid that people are structurally unemployed? So the projectification topic is then connected to the question, what is the social and economic purpose to apply the concept of projects in a certain business sector? Does that address your question, or am I going somewhere in a complete differently direction that you wanted me to go?
Okay, but the point is there are some link between having projects in this sector, and usually they are related to precarious work relations. It means that usually people that work in social economy or in arts are completely dependent on the fact that they have projects or not. Probably many people that work in these areas, if they don't have projects, they don't have the opportunity of continuing their work in that organizations. That's why we ask you, how do you what kind of thoughts do you have when we think about the project as a whole and the benefits and the more rosy face of the concept of project, and the dark side of the concept of the project? We have the bright side, if you want, and the dark side of the concept of project. And probably in some sectors it is more easier, or it is more obvious, this dark side instead of the bright side. Something, if you can elaborate around this.
Yes. Well, if you look at the social security aspect of being employed via projects, then you could observe that the employees that are being employed, they don't have a fixed contract. They have temporary contracts for the time of the project. So in terms of income security and work security, this is low. If you look at the social economy and social entrepreneurs, it is a fact that it's not a purpose to make large profits in a social economy, but to support the social economic subsistence of people participating as workers in those projects, or the beneficiaries of the outputs of a project. So if it's a housing project, then people who are looking for houses are the beneficiaries of the results of a project. In that way, you could say there are two sides of the same medal. It improves to relieve certain social problems, and at the same time, from an economic perspective, it doesn't offer much strong and durable, sustainable guarantees for the people who are employed in projects. But if there is nothing else, if there is not a market economy that offers jobs for people working in art or people working in social problem issues, then what do? That's why social innovation, social economy, social entrepreneurship is seen as practices that help to relieve social issues. And for the art sector, you could say that is a specific target group on the labor market for people who have a certain level and direction of training in qualifications that meet a very low market demand. Still, to ensure that they have some income security and some subsistence security, you could use projects to offer them a certain form of employmentship and income. So still, I would say it has two sides of the same medal.
Yes. Now another area in science, as you may know, projects are a way to standardize process and output. We all know this. But they also increase administrative work for scientists in some way. Probably for you, I'm not sure, but for us, for sure. Furthermore, they can limit research that would require longer periods of experimentation and reflection in one way. On the other way, what is your opinion combining the idea of working with projects and have the way that we can get money, because you can say like this, from the European Commission usually is this kind of shaping. You have to apply for projects, and then you have the projects approved or not, and then you start the project. It is a kind of routine way of science work. So combining these different ideas, what do you think are the impacts of projectification of science in different ways? In a way that we have the scientific work, and the way that we have a very a strong and heavy bureaucratic tasks as well. On the other way, the process of working with projectification in science is very common. We have already been familiar with this way of working, because in general, we don't have other way of working. When you want to have projects financed by Portuguese or Netherlands or other countries, you have to work in projects. So combining these two things, do you think, how do you think the projects, the impacts of projectification in science, how can you mention them, and how can you classify them, and so on?
Yes. Well, as you said, most work in science is done in projects. So that's nothing new. The possibilities or limitations are connected to what is the sum of money that you can spend in a project. Money is the same as time in this perspective, or means that you need. So for the sake of developing scientific knowledge, probably the stream of money should be endless, because our scientific hunger and the development of scientific knowledge is endless. On the other hand, you see that projectification is used as a way to develop research project with strict boundaries. Mm-hmm. As in the case of European research by Horizon Europe, for example. They have specific tasks, specific questions, specific type of research projects. research projects, demonstration projects, agency projects, development projects. So you see a division of labor related to the desired outcomes, for which different kind of projects and different kinds of projectification is needed. This is a way of...
What do you mean by different kind of projectification?
Research projects to develop knowledge is different than a demonstration project to demonstrate the working of new technologies. Mm-hmm. So that's a division between two types of projects.
Okay. And how do you relate with this, sorry for the question, with the societal impact?
Sorry, with the what impact?
Societal impact. The impact, yes, to society.
Yes.
Impact to society.
What do you want to know about it? What
yes.
The impact is?
Yes, it is a different question, but is related with the different kind of project that you mentioned. You have different ways of projectification, and probably you are connecting those different ways with different kind of projects. And in these different kind of projects, how do you see the impact of this project to society? For instance, if you are speaking more about the technological and products and the project that you have products, or you are mentioned to a project, this is more a social project or something similar?
Well, yes, you're giving the answer already. These are different impacts on society.
No, Peter, but I would like to have your opinion and your answer.
Well, in this case, the whole European Union endeavor is largely to create competitive markets in comparison to the US market, the Chinese market, and other markets. And the Horizon Europe projects are meant to develop new knowledge, to develop new practical applications in services and products, and to help solve social issues within Europe. So these are the impacts it has on society, in the sense that should, on the one hand, improve our competitive advantage and level of knowledge. And on the other hand, it should have a social impact to improve the livelihood and the participation of not only workers, but also citizens. So knowledge in this way not only serves science for science sake, but also to help relieve social issues, to improve the way that we can live together within
quality
Europe.
Of life and so on. And do you think
yes.
that these different projects or these different purpose means different kind of projectification, or not really?
No, I think that the projectification as a method or as a concept is similar. But the outputs, the desired outputs are different. So the effect, the impacts will be different. But you could still say that projectification can be a means to achieve certain goals in a very structured way, because projectification, it has a beginning and it has an end, and it has a number of logical steps in between. Like as an innovation project, you begin with plans and ideas, then you try to first try out certain ideas, then you make a first proof that you test, and later you transform them into projects that you produce. So there are logical projects to come from one idea to products or services that that serve a certain purpose that you want. And I think for projectification, it can be similar. But what it requires is, of course, good management of projects, good project management.
Okay, but okay. So another question. The apparent blurring of hierarchies in projects seems in fact to be a very effective control mechanism that is based on self-accountability. And I believe that you have a lot of things to do about to say about this, because you work with technologies and the way that technologies change work and contents of work and so on. Do you think projects are adopted among other factors as a way to increase control over work?
No, I don't think so. I think you can use projects in different ways. So using projects to control work is a choice. For example, in our organization, we all will work in projects. But within projects, there is a certain level of professionalism that the members in projects know what should be the outcome, and they use their professional expertise and autonomy to design the tasks that are needed to acquire the desired results. Of course, there are boundaries in the sense of time, money, and budget. Within this context, you have to carry out your tasks. And of course, there is a certain level of administrative control to ensure that the projects won't get strong losses, but will still be a profitable way of doing the work. But that doesn't mean that projects are used only for control and monitoring the work.
No, not only, but could be a way as well, among other factors,
It could,
to do
yes.
that. It could, but it is a choice.
Exactly. Like when you implement technology, you can implement the technology in a way that it supports you as a researcher and it supports your professionalism, or you can use it, apply it by algorithmic management, and it gives you precise instructions what to do, and it ensures that it gathers precise information to monitor the quality and the quantity of your output. But that is a choice.
Okay, Peter. Taking into account your experience in different projects, I would ask you a final comment related with this topic, related to the projectification, the way that working projects, the way that impact in health, the way that impact in quality of life, the way that you like to go work every day. So things like this. How do you connect these things with the way that you work? Because you work in projects every day.
Yes, well, on the one hand, it's a good way to work in projects, because not a single project is the same, and that means that there are always new things to learn. So that keeps you motivated, because there are always new and interesting topics to work on. And on the other hand, the limitations of projects in terms of time, money, and those kind of constraints, they are always there. So you always have to deliver some kind of accountancy of what you are doing. But you could say, well, this kind of responsibility comes with being a professional and accepting that as a professional, you always have to deliver the output that is needed. I think that is something that essentially is separately from working in a project or not, because if you're not working in a project, you have to deliver certain outputs. Otherwise, you get fired, for example. So working in projects, it has pros and it has cons.
And to combine the private life with the everyday working life, how are you able to manage it?
I think that that has to do with the extent to which you can set boundaries between your work and your private life. So for me, it works quite well to balance both environments, the private environment and the working environment. And but I also accept that working time and leisure time they flow over in the one in the other. So I don't keep that very strictly separated. But that's a choice that I make. On the other hand, I also see in my environment that not for everyone that is easy to do. Sometimes it creates stress overload in the working environment or in the private environment, and with difficulties to cope with that. Yes, but I wouldn't say that that is a consequence of projectification per se. It has to do also with how life and how work is changing in general. For example, the pressure of the market economy and competitiveness, the introduction of artificial intelligence and social media, the way people are engaged in the digital universe with everything that they do. That is something that these phenomena are in a way separated from projects themselves.
Okay. I think it's all. I don't know if you want to add something. For us, it's okay.
Okay, well, I'm happy that I could help you with this. Of course, I'm also curious about the progress of the project, but maybe that's not part of the interview.
No.
To hear where you were going. But for the interview, I don't have any additional comments.